All right, so we all know that implementing a new habit or behavior can be extremely difficult. And one of the reasons that is because it requires quite a bit of willpower and effort up front in order to get started and get that new habit or behavior implemented. If you've ever taken on a New Year's resolution to lose weight or start a new diet and find yourself off the wagon a week later, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what if there was a way that you could actually tap into an invisible force that's all around us and constantly influencing our behaviors, our actions, some of the habits that we have? What if you could tap into that and utilize it to making a habit easier with less investment, right? You could use this force to make you healthier, wealthier, and really any area of your life. Well, on today's lesson, we're going to be talking about that invisible force and how you can use it to shape your life the way you want. So stay tuned. Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Adam over at Teach You Freedom, where, as you know, it is our mission to help you remove the mental and emotional barriers that are keeping you from living life on your terms. On this week's mastery lesson, we're talking about a ton of different stuff. We're going to talk about the chemistry of habits. We're going to talk about this invisible force that's constantly shaping our lives. And we're going to share with you guys some tactical tools that you can implement to lower that threshold of implementing a new habit, make it a little bit easier, require less willpower, and create some habits and behaviors that can sustain over long periods of time. So really 4 big ideas that we're going to be covering today, right? First and foremost, we're going to be talking about that invisible force. Secondly, we're going to be talking about some of the chemistry of behaviors and habits, right? We're going to be talking about activation energy and that upfront investment that we need to commit in order to get a habit or behavior going. We're going to be talking about catalysts to continue the chemistry theme. We're going to be talking about how we can catalyze or reduce the amount of activation energy we need in order to get a habit or behavior started. And then lastly, we're going to talk about eliminating intermediary steps, right? The things in between you and what you want, how we can minimize those to get you to your goal faster. So let's go ahead and get things kicked off. All right, so the first big idea that I want to talk about is this invisible force that's constantly shaping our habits and behaviors. And to demonstrate this point, I want to talk to you guys about a researcher. He's a biologist and a geologist named Jared Diamond. He wrote the book Guns, Germs, and Steel, which is an awesome book if you haven't read it yet. And in the book, he details some research that him and his team did. And basically what they did was study the growth of agriculture across different continents. So take example for the Eurasian, landmass, the Europe and Asian continents, spanning from France all the way to China. And that primary axis is really east to west, right? It's horizontal. Where in comparison to continents like North America, South America, Africa, those primary axes run up and down, or north and south, right? Well, what they found is that in Europe and Asia, agriculture actually spread 2 times faster than it did in continents where the primary axis was north and south. So you think, interesting, what is the reason for that, or why do I care? Well, one of the reasons they hypothesize is that obviously the farther north or south you go, you move different types of latitude. And at different latitudes, you have different temperature, different humidity, different climate. And what the researchers hypothesize is that if you were in, Europe or Asia, you just needed to find one crop that worked in France, and you could plant that seed all across from Europe to Asia, and have one crop that worked. Whereas in the North and South counterparts in North America, South America, and Africa, you had to find a different seed that worked and thrived in all these different latitudes, which made it a lot more difficult, and you had to invest a lot more time in figuring out what those seeds were. And this is a really interesting point because it paints a picture of we don't have any research that shows the farmers in Europe and Asia are smarter or had better tools or maybe better soil. It was completely because of the environment that shaped their habits and behavior that allowed their agricultural growth to explode much faster. And it really makes you think, what are other areas of life where our behaviors, our actions are influenced by this seemingly invisible force? And that's the big idea that I want to get across, right? There's an invisible force called the environment that, whether you're conscious or unconscious to it, is constantly shaping your habits and behaviors. And that's going to be the main theme of the conversation we're going to talk today. All right, so big idea number 2, we're going to step away from the environment piece for a little bit and talk about the chemistry of habits, okay? For all my chemistry people out there, you'll know there's a thing called activation energy. And activation energy in a chemistry standpoint is literally just the amount of energy that needs to be input into a reaction in order to move it forward, right? So you need to put some energy into a system in order to get results. Now, the same thing is true true with our habits and behaviors, right? You need to put some upfront investment in order to get the habit or behavior moving, right? Anybody who's ever been sitting on the couch eating Cheetos and knows that they need to go for a run knows that there's some effort that they need to put in order to get off the couch and get out the door, right? Now, depending on the exercise or the habit or behavior that you choose to engage with, different habits and behaviors have different activation energies. So getting down on the floor and doing 1 push-up is a relatively low amount of activation energy, where getting up and doing 100 push-ups or going for a 2-mile run is a much different type of activation energy and requires a lot more upfront investment. Okay, so something key to realize here is that whenever we're talking about habits and behaviors, there's an upfront investment, and depending on how difficult that habit or behavior is, it's going to require a different amount of activation energy. So now that we know a little bit about activation energy, let's talk about big idea number 3, catalysts, right? Another chemistry term, a catalyst is basically something that's used to lower the amount of activation energy required to move a reaction forward. Same principle applies to our habits and behaviors, right? We want a catalyst that lowers the amount of activation energy that we need to get from the couch to outside, right? To get from where we are to where we want to go. And so we need to figure out a way to get a catalyst into the system. Now you might be asking, what is that catalyst? Adam, do you know? And yes, I have an answer for you. The best way that I've found to catalyze or reduce the amount of activation energy that goes into a habit or behavior and making it easier is utilizing the environment, right? That's why where this whole story comes into play from the big idea number 1. We want to use the environment to catalyze our habit or behavior and make the barrier to entry as small as possible. Okay, now I'm going to be sharing some tools that you guys can utilize to go ahead and make that a possibility. Whether you know it or not, the world around us is already using the environment as a catalyst to get you to do certain things, right? I don't know if you have ever noticed this, but there's a thing called choice architecture. It's a psychology term, and marketing and stores all around the world use this tactic. You might notice it. Have you ever noticed that there's certain things that you buy that are just at eye level on the shelves, right? Marketers know that things that are at eye level, obviously we see them a little bit better and we're more likely to grab them. What about end caps, right? You're at Target, my favorite place, or it's not really my favorite place, but I know a lot of people love it, or a Walmart, and you'll notice on the end caps or in the end of aisles, they have all the good stuff, right? All the stuff that's on sale or the things that they're promoting. And scientifically, we know that people buy more of this stuff on the end caps, right? It has nothing to do with the product, but literally these people put it in a certain place and now we buy it more. So we're already having the environment acted upon us without us knowing. It's the same thing with checkout, right? All the candy bars and all the good stuff's at the checkout aisle where you've just spent an hour grocery shopping, your willpower is reduced, and it seems so innocent just to put a candy bar there at the end, a little goodie on the way out, right? So you're already being used, or there's already catalysts being used to help you influence the decisions that you're making, you just don't know about it. So how can we use this for our benefit, right? How can we use the environment or choice architecture to catalyze and lower the willpower we need in order to promote a good habit or behavior? 2 ideas that I really like. First and foremost, I'll just share with you guys when I'm grocery shopping, right? I know if the food's in the house, I'm gonna eat it. There's no way. I can't resist Ben & Jerry's, chocolate, whatever it might be. So I don't even buy that food and bring it into the house because I know I'll eat it. And this is an example of choice architecture where when I take the choice off the table, I no longer have to invest willpower or energy in resisting the temptation, right? The decision is already made for me. Another really good example of this is utilizing the environment is laying the clothes out that you want to work out with the night before, right? If your shorts, your shoes, your jacket, everything you need is already there in front of you, you don't have to invest time and energy in thinking about what you're going to wear, what the workout's going to look like. You can just put it on and go. So my challenge for you guys is, what are some of the ways that you can set up predetermined choices or use choice architecture to make it easier to do whatever your habit or behavior is, right? I love James Clear's example of, utilizing the flossers when he's trying to floss. He puts them right next to his toothbrush. So as he's going to put his toothbrush away, he sees the flossers right there, sticks them in his mouth, and it's a super easy transition. So challenge for you guys, how can you use choice architecture to take decisions off the table or make decisions easier so you have to invest less energy and willpower up front to get them done? All right, so big idea number 4. Intermediary reactions. And I know we've been talking about a lot of chemistry, but it's a great metaphor. A lot of reactions have intermediary steps, right? You have product A, it goes to AB, and then you get B at the end of it. Well, the same is true with our habits and behaviors, right? You don't just put your gym clothes on and get teleported to the gym, right? You got to wake up, put your gym clothes on, make sure you pack your protein shake, you got to get in your car, drive to the gym, change or whatever it might be, or whatever intermediary step, and then finally you get the workout. Well, there's a lot of times where those intermediary steps can prevent us or seem overwhelming to the point where we just want to throw the whole process out the door, right? Have you ever been that place where you're coming home late from work, you know you want to cook something healthy and nourish your body, but you're just so exhausted, the thought of pulling out the food, de-thawing it, cooking it, cutting it up just seems absolutely exhausting, so you head down the street and you go pick up some takeout, or you just walk to the grocery store and get some fast food, right? The intermediary steps can sometimes trip us up and prevent us from actually carrying out the habit or behavior. So what we want to do is we want to, again, use some choice architecture or use some predetermined pathways in order to eliminate some of the intermediary steps. So a good example is one that I just gave, right? Instead of having to think about cooking and thawing food and doing all the intermediary steps in cooking, why not just batch everything? You cook everything on Sunday, which is why meal prepping is so important or so useful, because you do it all in one step. Then when it comes during the middle of the week, all you have to do is pop that Tupperware in the microwave and it's all done for you, right? Another really interesting one that I use is, I know that if I have to drive out of my way to go to the gym, I'm not gonna wanna do it. It's just like stressful for me. I hate traffic. I don't wanna go. So I've managed to get my gym in a location that's either on my way from work or on my way home, right? So that way I have to pass the gym either way. I'm not out any time or difficulties knowing that I have to go to my work anyway, and I have to pass the gym on the way, so I can either go before work or after work. And that's an easy way to take that intermediary step out of having to drive out to, you know, Timbuktu to get to the gym. Okay, so I want you guys to evaluate some of the behaviors or habits that you're trying to implement. What are some of those intermediary steps that are tripping you up that you can just remove completely, right? Maybe it is going to the gym, so why don't you buy a dumbbell and get some home workouts, right? Maybe it's cooking for yourself. Why don't you try meal prepping? Maybe it's, you know, having to go searching for, I don't know, the flossers in your drawer. Why not just set them out, put them right next to your toothbrush, and make them that much more accessible? So this is one of the ways that we can actually decrease the amount of energy and willpower associated by eliminating intermediary steps. All right, you guys, so that's the big ideas that I have on how we can utilize the environment as a catalyst to decrease the amount of activation energy and willpower associated with implementing new habits and behaviors. So big ideas again, first and foremost, the environment. The environment is a massive catalyst that we can use to reduce the amount of energy and willpower involved in making choices and habits and behaviors, right? We talked about activation energy and how bigger, more complicated habits have a higher activation energy. We talked about catalysts, how we can reduce the amount of activation energy. And then we talked about eliminating intermediary steps. If you guys really like this video, let me know down below what your favorite big idea was, or some of the tactics that you're gonna use to implement. If you guys have ideas for other videos or improvements that I can make to the videos that I publish, would love to know down below in the comments. If not, I hope to see you guys again next time.